So far I've talked to you about an economy, an evolving economy, games, and how do we all apply it? First of all, what do we want? Now, the main thing that I want for Kameshwaram and any other space, okay, is a transition from what to what, from a linear economy to a circular economy. Indeed, that's why I say our diamond model is actually embedded in a process of transition from a circular economy to a linear economy for sustainable development. What is meant by sustainable development? Now, this was defined in the 1980s. And sustainable development means that we use natural resources to do all the things we want, to consume all the products we want, but we leave it intact so that future generations can also consume and produce and have a high quality of life. Right now, as I told you, we are not doing that. We are living a worse earth for the following generations. Why is that? See, this is where we say that before, you see, we had a linear economy. That is, when we were growing, especially after World War II from the 1950s, but even during the last 5 centuries, it is we use raw materials, we produce, we use whatever we want, and we throw away whatever we want. Okay? Now, as the amount of waste in the world got to be more and more, from the 1980s onwards, we started thinking about reusing. So we moved from the linear economy to the reuse economy. Okay? And we started saying, hey, let's use the natural resources, produce what we want, use it, and then if something goes, dysfunctional, then let's just see how we can integrate it back into the production system so that we don't produce so much of non-recyclable waste. Now, we want to go even further because planet Earth, Mother Earth, is suffering, and her suffering is showing in terms of climate change and more scarce water. We cannot keep on exploiting Mother Earth. So I want to tell that this circular economy is a very big concept because of two dimensions. First of all, the circular economy is saying that you have to produce as little waste as possible. In fact, you should not produce any waste. This is called a zero waste economy. And it is even asking to we have to move from here to here to here. We think recycling and reuse is mainly for the poor, but we have to change the way we live. And this is going to call not only for change in the way we consume things, but also in the way we produce things. In Europe, for example, the circular economy is put as an opportunity. The European Parliament has declared its intention to make Europe a circular economy. Currently, Germany is an international leader in circular economy, followed by the Netherlands. Okay? We have huge landfills in India. In Germany, there are no landfills. But this is going to call for change in consumption and production. And the circular economy must come to Kameshwaram also. And that's what we are trying to have. If it comes in a village, can it come to the rest of the world? But you see, a circular economy, I want to tell two things. First of all, it is in all traditional cultures. For example, most traditional cultures believe that, you see, in karma, that is, whatever action is there, there is going to be some sort of a reaction. So if you do good things, you will reap good fortune. If you do bad things, sometime or the other, you see, in India, that's why we have this concept of reincarnation. That is, even if you don't get it bad in this life, in some other life, you're going to suffer. So why do bad things in the first place? So this reincarnation is kind of a self-commitment contract to be the best possible. That's one thing. So we're coming back to a traditional holistic view of things, where, you know, what comes up must come down, what comes down must come up. Secondly, it is shaking the notion of political science and economics, because I am part of the group which is asking, why grow? Why grow and grow and grow? Why should economies grow? Why should populations grow? Why should we keep on trying to maximize our income? Why can't we say, hey, this is enough for us, and let's just sustain ourselves and continue? So a linear economic growth means more. A circular, sustainable concept of development is talking about something that can make us happy, but there is no need to keep on asking more. Think about it. Should we really try for more in everything? I don't think so. I'd like to know your opinion. So this kind of a development, at least what we are going for, is embedded in something called the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, previously it was called the Millennium Development Goals. This is the idea. You see, development economists and policy makers were all arguing about what is development, what is growth, what is poverty, how do we measure poverty, etc., etc. And there is an organization called the OECD in Europe, and a bunch of economists there said, what does it matter? Okay, this is all very important, but what we need to know is, what do we want the world to be like? What do we want? Then let's see how to solve it, instead of arguing about what is the problem first. How much are we going to measure deprivation? Let's see what we want to do. So they said, we must have a simple set of goals that every grandmother in every country will be able to understand. And they created something called the Millennium Development Goals, and in September 2000, all the heads of states which belong to the UN got together and signed this pact to be part of the Millennium, to strive for the Millennium Development Goals. This was called the 2015 agenda. They had about 7 Millennium Goals, or 5, I forget. But now we have 17 sustainable goals, because, for example, before we didn't have sanitation, clean water and sanitation. It took till 2002 to get sanitation. And now you see, because of people, we are having animals. It's not only about people. It's about fish. It's about birds. It's about trees. So we have also got, for the first time, gender, and we are talking about gender not only as man or woman, but also transgender. And then we are talking about sexual orientation. You know, they can be heterosexual or homosexual or bisexual. What does it matter? Everybody has human rights, okay? And so this kind of a description is wonderful, and it is the first time in the history of mankind, the first time, that all nations have agreed that at least these are worthwhile goals. This is the first time. And national governments, including the Indian government, has instituted various national programs to attain these goals. For example, the Swachh Bharat is called the Clean India, but again it's not the wash model, because the Clean India first started with only toilets. Now it's coming a little bit into waste management, but they are distinguishing between rural and urban, and water is separate and slums are separate, and so you see, and health is separate. And again, this is parallel discourse, but still it is all there. But wait, okay, a number of people have argued, and they are arguing, and their sounds are getting more and more loud. It is simply impossible to attain all these goals. That is, you cannot have more economic growth, global economic growth. It is, I think it's supposed to be about 0.3% or 3%, you have to check, globally. But this is impossible with less pollution. So if you want growth, you see, and if you want reduced inequality, it's a big challenge, and if you want to keep environment, it is even bigger. And you see, this is very interesting. 12 is the circular economy. This is a symbol of the circular economy. Responsible consumption and production, especially in developing countries, emerging economies. The middle class is growing, the consumption is increasing. People are especially, I remember an anecdote. When I was very young, I was reading a book by an American, and he was writing, Americans come in two shapes. Either they are obese or they are malnourished. Okay? And I was saying, ha ha ha, in India we are all okay. But now, in India, it's the same thing. We are finding, the rich